It's time to leave outdated stereotypes behind and meet real people shaping the new retirement revolution. Each episode delivers real talk and candid conversations about the pivotal moments that motivated individuals to challenge the norms, redefine their purpose, and adopt fresh perspectives on life after work. This is Retirement Unfiltered, real talk about life's next chapter.
Welcome to Retirement Unfiltered. This is the podcast where we skip the sugarcoating, toss out the cliches, and talk about what life after work really looks like. I'm one of your co-hosts, Nan Ives.
And I'm Lisa Storniello. We're your guides, truth tellers, and occasional instigators when it comes to reimagining retirement.
As co-founders of the Future of You, we've both seen in our lives and the lives of hundreds of others that retirement is not just one long vacation. It's a major life transition.
Don't get us wrong. There's a lot about retirement that's super fun. The freedom, the flexibility, the afternoon naps. But it also shakes up your identity, your relationships, your routines, and most of all, your sense of purpose.
And here's the thing. Most people are totally unprepared for this transition. They plan for the money, but they miss one huge piece of the puzzle. It's called life. People spend very little time planning for what this next chapter actually looks like. And that's where things can get bumpy and sometimes a little messy.
Now, we're not here to tell you every day in retirement will look like a perfect Instagram post. Sure, some days are going to be picture perfect. You know, those pinch me moments. But there are plenty of other days that feel a lot more like a Facebook rant.
And that's why today's episode is called Truth Telling, because when it comes to retirement, people usually share the highlight reel, the glory shots of travel, golf, pickleball, gardening, and grandkids. But the truth? Retirement is messy. At first, the freedom is amazing, but then comes the identity crisis, the empty calendar, the now what moments that no one actually warned you about.
Truth telling means we're willing to say what others won't, that retirement can be exciting and terrifying, liberating and lonely, and sometimes all of that in the same week. And honesty matters, because when people only hear the fantasy, they feel blindsided by the reality of it all.
And people love to ensure that the fantasy stays intact. You hear people say things like, I'm busier than ever, but that could mean I spent 2 days reorganizing the garage and 3 days talking about it.
Right? Or they'll say, I finally have time to travel. Translation, I booked 4 weeks in Tuscany and spent the other 48 weeks at the grocery store.
Exactly. And my personal favorite, I'm so excited to spend more time with the grandkids. Translation for that one, how did I just become the unpaid Uber driver for school pickup?
Well, spoiler alert, retirement takes more than a passport stamp, a to-do list, or a car seat in the back of your SUV.
And retirement does come with plenty of great moments, but without a plan for life in retirement, those moments can feel scattered. And in this podcast, we're going to shine a spotlight on all sides of retirement. You're going to hear real stories, you're going to laugh at the missteps, and you're going to get inspired by people who went from restless and disconnected to completely lit up about life again.
The research that we've conducted and the solutions that we've built through the Future of You have helped countless people take that now what moment and turn it into a brand new sense of purpose. At its core, it's about living with intention. And the best part, it's not one size fits all. It's about designing a life that's uniquely yours, a life plan that doesn't just fill your time, but makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning.
And here's where the intersection of our careers and as co-founders of the Future of You gets interesting. Between the two of us, we spent close to 50 decades in leadership roles at America's retirement company, Fidelity Investments. And people assumed that we knew all about retirement and we had it all figured out. Why wouldn't they? We talked about retirement every single day, but the focus was always on the money.
Right. The part that never made it to those conversations was life planning. How you fill 20 to 30 years of open days. That's just not free time. It's a whole new chapter. And without a plan, those days can feel endless instead of fulfilling.
When I stepped into retirement, I was kind of shocked at how different it felt from what I expected. One day you're surrounded by structure, deadlines, and colleagues, and the next you're staring at endless hours, sometimes alone with an empty calendar. It's a seismic shift.
Yeah, exactly. And even though we were financially prepared, we were completely unprepared for that emotional, psychological shift. Living in retirement gave us a front row seat to the truth. It is a huge life transition. And if you don't plan for the life part, emptiness can sneak in pretty fast.
And that realization became our turning point, and it's why we created the Future View, a life design and coaching program built for experienced professionals navigating this new phase.
We thought, what better way to kick off this podcast than to share our own stories? Because those stories show the gap between what we dreamed our retirement would be and what we actually experienced, a gap that so many others go through as well.
And I think nothing tells the truth better than a good headline. And here's my retirement headline: Decades of dreaming about unlimited golf. I got my handicap to single digit. Turns out that's not a life purpose. So here's my story about how I retired. After 27 years at Fidelity, when the offer of early retirement came, I didn't hesitate. I was ready for a change. And just like that, the decision was made. Finally, I could do what I've been dreaming about for years.
And you did. You went straight to the golf course. You know, at one point, Nan, I was going to ask you if you were wearing your golf glove to bed at night.
Hey, Lisa, when you're chasing birdies, you got to stay committed. But after a while, I realized that maybe unlimited golf wasn't quite the grand life purpose I thought it would be.
Yep. And meanwhile, when I retired, my daughter was heading to college. She had this beautiful roadmap, checklists, online tools, and guides to really help her through this major life transition. But for my retirement life planning, I had nothing. My retirement headline is my daughter's college planning came with a detailed roadmap, but my retirement came with blank pages.
And I know you too well. You don't have a plan. That's like you trying to drive without a GPS.
Guilty. You know, I love that old A Team line when Mr. T says, I love it when a plan comes together. You know, I'm totally lost without a plan, which is probably why I kind of threw myself into my daughter's college planning. She had an entire ecosystem walking her step by step into college life.
That actually sounds pretty amazing.
You know, it was until I looked around for my own retirement life plan, and all I found were spreadsheets and calculators for money. Only money. No one tool on how to rebuild your identity, how to fill your days with meaning, or even figure out what the heck you're going to do after breakfast. And I was really aching for something like that to guide me into this major transition into retirement.
That's a big difference. It's a lot of empty pages to fill when you're trying to map out 20 to 30 years of your life.
Yeah, it's huge, right?
Mhm.
And I couldn't get over a little bit how unfair it felt. I mean, my daughter had every resource imaginable for her transition, but decades in the workforce, I was kind of left with good luck and hope you like pickleball.
You know what? We do like pickleball.
We do. We do. But you know, pickleball can't be the whole plan.
Mm.
I wanted a roadmap for a successful retirement, just like my daughter had, to help her successfully navigate a very balanced transition to college. And when I couldn't find it, I realized so many retirees were in the same boat and really wanted the same thing.
Oh, I know that feeling, but my plan was way simpler. Just travel and golf. Lots of golf.
Yeah, and you did.
I did, but golf nirvana turned into, wait, WTF? One day it hit me. Is this really it? Hitting a little white ball for the next 20 to 30 years? Planning the next getaway? Those are all fun, yes, but that wasn't exactly the kind of thing I wanted etched on my life mission statement. And that's when I realized purpose doesn't magically show up just because you have more free time. It left me wondering if I was the only one feeling this way.
So when Nan asked me, "Is this just me?" I said, "Nope. This is happening to a lot of people. It's a thing, Nan." My background as a career coach was always about helping leaders navigate big career transitions. And I started noticing the same struggles showing up in retirement. And I began getting a steady stream of ad hoc calls from friends and former colleagues, finding themselves restless and unfulfilled. They weren't missing their jobs, they were just missing their purpose.
And that's when we both got curious. We know how to rebalance a financial portfolio, but how do you rebalance your life portfolio? One day you're running flat out, juggling work and family. The next, it's wide open. No structure, no rhythm. Once the novelty of freedom wears off, those hours can start to feel more like a burden than a gift. And that's exactly what happened to us. We began searching for answers about life after work. What comes next? How should I spend my time? And what will give my life meaning?
So we did what we've always done best. We went back to our design thinking roots. We started listening, really listening. We interviewed people who had retired, people who were about to, and the themes were the same. Nobody said, "I need a new investment strategy." What they said was, "I didn't expect to feel this lost."
The more we heard people's real stories, the clearer it became. People weren't trying to just stay busy. They were searching for connection, direction, and a renewed sense of self. And honestly, so are we.
We kept hearing the same thing. Retirement was supposed to be the best time of my life, but the transition was really much harder than I had expected.
Exactly. One day you wake up staring at hours of empty space you've got to figure out how to fill. I actually caught myself one day writing lunch on my calendar just so I'd have something scheduled.
Hey, at least you showed up.
Well, you know what? On that one, I was actually early for that lunch. And then, my big decision for the day was Netflix, Hulu, or just take a nap.
Ooh, that's a tough call. Critical decision-making skills at their finest, but not exactly a life plan for the next chapter of your life.
No, our design thinking approach sort of gave us a front row seat to a wide spectrum of experiences, from people who had reinvented themselves with purpose and energy to those still struggling with identity and meaning after they left their careers behind. It was the ultimate design lab for life after work.
Yes, and then from there, we began testing ideas and prototyping solutions in real time with people who were in the thick of the retirement transition. And ultimately, we discovered something we wish we had when we left full-time work: a practical, proven roadmap for redesigning life in retirement, realigning your purpose, your identity, and your daily rhythm. And that roadmap became what we refer to as our future in four. It's our secret sauce, if you will. You'll hear more about that throughout this podcast.
Which is going to bring us to what's next. So, in our next episode, we're going to keep pulling back the curtain on what retirement feels like: the highs, the lows, and the no one warned me about this moment. And next week, we're diving into a big one. It's called the retirement syndrome. You know that feeling when you've counted down to retirement for years, and then once it arrives, you suddenly feel a little lost?
Yep, that's the retirement syndrome. It's what happens when your work identity disappears overnight and you're left wondering, who am I now? We'll unpack the emotions, the science, and the stories behind this invisible shift. And of course, we'll talk about how to move through it with humor, honesty, and grace.
So if today's episode made you think, laugh, or nod, subscribe on your favorite podcast app and come back for more unfiltered takes on retirement life.
Until next time, keep living, loving, and designing your life.
And remember, retirement isn't the end of your story.
It's just the start of your next chapter.
So from our mics to your morning coffee, thanks for hanging out with us today on Retirement Unfiltered. We'll see you next time.